I jolted awake at 06:30 a.m. to the grating squeak of the garden gate. Linda Miller, my mother-in-law, had arrived at our neighbor's place last night, clearly to monitor my every move from the crack of dawn today, as if I wasn't capable of organizing a birthday bash for 50 guests at our suburban home. I pulled on jeans and a hoodie, slipped my feet into sneakers, and went out into the yard. The October morning was unseasonably warm. The sun was already filtering through the yellowing leaves of the maple tree I'd planted myself 3 years ago. Back then, this lot was just an abandoned field with a run-down cottage. Now neighbors deliberately slowed down as they drove past my flower beds. "Sarah, where are you?" a familiar shrill voice called from the gate. My mother-in-law was already looming at the entrance in a bright orange coat that made her look like a traffic cone. A massive tote bag stuffed with who knows what dangled from her hand. "Good morning, Linda," I said curtly, walking over to open it. "You're up late, aren't you?" She huffed, squeezing into the yard. "It's my 58th birthday today, such a milestone, and you're sleeping in till noon." I silently led her to the house. Arguing with Linda was pointless. She always found something to complain about. Either I was up too early clattering dishes, or I went to bed too late and disturbed the neighbors. Today, apparently, I'd woken up too late to organize her celebration. "Where's Ethan?" my mother-in-law asked, scanning the patio, which I'd already managed to decorate with garlands of autumn leaves. "Still asleep. He was up late last night fiddling with the barbecue." "Good, let him rest. A man needs to conserve his strength," Linda declared grandly, then immediately started criticizing my work. "And what are these garlands for? It's too garish, and the chairs aren't arranged right." I clenched my teeth and started rearranging the furniture as the birthday girl demanded. In 7 years of marriage, I'd learned the main rule. It was better to do it her way immediately than to redo it 3 times later. At 8:00 a.m., Ethan woke up. He appeared on the patio, disheveled in an old t-shirt and boxers. "Mom, you're already here?" he asked, surprised, as if he didn't know his mother had been staking out the neighbor's place since last night. "Of course, sweetie. It's my special day." Linda instantly switched from criticism to doting. "Go have breakfast. I made you some pancakes." My husband glanced at me guiltily. We had agreed that I would do all the cooking and his mother would just show up for the start of the party. But Linda, as usual, had decided everything her way. "Okay, Mom." Ethan nodded obediently and shuffled into the house. I stayed on the patio, finishing the decorations. I twirled another garland in my hands while thoughts of how sick I was of these constant invasions into our life spun in my head. My mother-in-law would show up at our house unannounced, rearrange furniture, criticize my cooking, and lecture us like we were toddlers. "Sarah," she called from the kitchen, "come here, we need to talk." Reluctantly, I put down my work and went inside. Linda was standing at the stove frying pancakes and simultaneously dishing out instructions. "Listen, I was thinking," she began without turning around. "Aren't we inviting a few too many people? 50 guests? That's a serious number. Can you handle that many?" "I can handle it," I replied shortly. I'd been a professional event planner for 10 years. I'd managed corporate events for 200 people, let alone a family birthday. "Well, all right then," my mother-in-law drawled skeptically. "Just make sure everything is top-notch. My colleagues from the accounting department will be here, neighbors, relatives. I don't want to look bad." Ethan was silent, focused on eating his pancakes. It never even occurred to him to stand up for his wife. "By the way," Linda continued, "what about the music I asked you to find a good classic rock cover band?" "I found a DJ," I replied. "He'll play what you like." "A DJ?" My mother-in-law grimaced. "That's not the same at all. We need live music, something with soul, not this modern electronic stuff." I took a deep breath. We'd spent a month looking for a DJ, calling half the agencies in town. The good local bands were either already booked for other events or cost an arm and a leg. "Linda, live musicians are impossible to find now. The party's in 3 hours." "See, I told you we should have started looking earlier," she tutted, shaking her head reproachfully. "Ethan, you promised to help your mother with the organization?" My husband shrugged guiltily. "Mom Sarah knows best about this stuff." "Knows best," Linda huffed. Fine, let it be a DJ. Just tell him to play normal music, not this modern pop garbage. I nodded and left the kitchen to avoid saying something I'd regret. On the patio, I started arranging bouquets of asters I'd cut from my own garden. Work was calming. When your hands are busy, it's easier not to dwell on unpleasant things. At 10:00 a.m., helpers started to arrive. Our neighbor Teresa brought homemade mini quiches. Her husband Victor offered to help with the barbecue. My friend Susan brought extra dishes and tablecloths. "Wow, it looks beautiful here," Susan exclaimed, looking around the patio. "Straight out of a magazine." "Thanks," I smiled. I tried. "And is the mother-in-law happy?" "When is she ever happy?" I sighed. "I've already redone everything 10 times. Hang in there, sweetie." Susan patted my shoulder sympathetically. "You can endure one day." If only she knew how tired I was of enduring. 7 years of enduring constant interference, criticism, unsolicited advice. 7 years of living with the feeling that I was a guest in my own family and Linda was the main event. At 11:00 a.m., my mother-in-law changed into her party outfit, a sparkly magenta dress and chunky gold beads. Her hair was styled in a high updo, and she wore heavy makeup. She looked as formal as a school principal at graduation. "Well, how do I look?" She twirled in front of the hallway mirror. "Very festive," I replied diplomatically. Really, I was worried it might be too bright. "No, it's just right for a special birthday." Linda was satisfied and went off to oversee the final preparations. Meanwhile, I changed into black pants and a white blouse. Simple but elegant. For such events, it's better to look understated so as not to outshine the guest of honor. "Sarah, where are the keys to your car?" Ethan suddenly asked, peeking into the bedroom. "Why?" I was surprised. "They're in my purse." "Oh, just wanted to check if everything's okay. Maybe wash it before the party." "No need, I washed it yesterday. And why wash it anyway? It's in the garage." "All right then." My husband waved his hand and left. Strange. We only had one car. A gift from my parents for my birthday last year. A bright red Honda Civic, practically new. I cherished it not just because it was expensive, but because it was a sign of thoughtfulness from my mom and dad. They'd saved their whole lives and then decided to spoil their daughter. Ethan rarely drove it. He didn't even have a license. He kept saying he was going to take the test, but never got around to it, or maybe he just didn't want to. It was easier to ask his wife for a ride or take the bus. At 12:30, the guests started to arrive. First came Linda's colleagues from the accounting department. 4 women aged between 40 and 60, all in party dresses with bouquets and gifts. "Oh, Linda, you look wonderful," they gushed, surrounding the birthday girl. "You don't look your age at all, and what a beautiful house. Sarah, you've done a marvelous job setting everything up." The last compliment sounded a bit forced. The accountants clearly thought that throwing a party for one's mother-in-law was a daughter-in-law's direct duty, not a reason for praise. Next came the neighbors from the subdivision, the Berezins, with their 2 teenage kids, the elderly Kuznetsovs and the young Makarov couple. Everyone brought flowers, boxes of chocolates, and bottles of champagne. "Where's the guest of honor?" Mr. Berezin boomed, seeing me at the door. "On the patio receiving congratulations," I smiled, pointing the way. The house began to fill with voices, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. I shuttled between the kitchen and the patio serving appetizers, making sure everyone's glasses were full. The work was bustling, and it was even pleasant. No time to think about unpleasantness. "Sarah, where are your parents?" asked Teresa, helping me carry out plates. "They couldn't make it," I replied. "Dad isn't feeling well." In reality, my parents didn't come for another reason. After the last blowout, when Linda had given me a dressing down in front of them, Mom said she never wanted to be in the same room as my mother-in-law again. Dad supported her, and I understood them. At 1 o'clock distant, relatives arrived, Linda's cousin Carol with her husband and daughter, and a nephew with his wife. They brought a huge cake and a bouquet of 30 roses. "Linda!" shrieked Carol. "You look absolutely gorgeous, and what a fabulous house. Sarah, you're a miracle worker." I felt a little warmer inside. At least someone appreciated my efforts. "Thank you, Carol, that's very kind." "And where's our Ethan?" She looked around. "I don't see him." "He's helping with the barbecue," I lied. In reality, my husband was sitting with Victor on a bench by the shed, telling jokes, and occasionally glancing at the burgers. By 2 o'clock, almost all the invited guests had gathered. The patio was buzzing like a beehive. Linda presided in the center, accepting congratulations and telling everyone about her achievements at work, what a wonderful son she had, and how hard it had been for her to raise him alone. "Can you imagine I raised Ethan all by myself?" she'd say tearfully to each new group of listeners. "His father died young, we were left alone, just the two of us. I was both mother and father to him. I gave my child everything." I listened to these speeches and marveled. According to Ethan, his childhood was quite ordinary. His father died when he was 15. By then, his character was already formed, but Linda loved to portray herself as a heroic single mother who had performed a feat by raising her son. "And now I have a good daughter-in-law, too." My mother-in-law continued nodding in my direction. "Sarah is hard-working, a good homemaker. True, no children yet, but that's a matter of time." I winced. The children issue was a sore subject. Ethan and I had been trying to conceive for 3 years, but so far unsuccessfully. Doctors said there were no medical reasons, we just needed time. And Linda regularly inquired when she would finally get grandchildren and offered advice on how to speed up the process. "Linda, show us your presents," one of the accountants requested. "What did you get?" The birthday girl immediately perked up and began to display her trophies. There was a whole pile of cosmetics, jewelry dishes, flowers, money in envelopes. Everyone oohed and ahed. "And this is from Sarah and Ethan." She showed off a silver chain with a pendant. "Beautiful, isn't it?" We had spent a long time choosing that gift, nearly half a month's salary. We wanted Linda to be happy. "Very beautiful," the guests agreed. "Chosen with taste." "Yes, my children are very thoughtful," Linda declared proudly. "They always think of their mother." At 3:30 p.m., the DJ arrived. A guy in his 20s with huge speakers and a ton of equipment. While he was setting up, I went over and explained again what kind of music to play. Got it." He nodded. "Retro classic rock 80s hits. It'll be just as you want." The first melodies played softly as background for conversations. Linda nodded approvingly. She liked the music. "Well, finally," she said, approaching me. "I was afraid they'd be playing that modern wailing." I kept silent. I liked modern music, but today wasn't my day, it was my mother-in-law's. By 4:00 p.m., the dancing started. Timidly at first, then more and more merrily. Linda was the center of attention, dancing with every man in turn. Ethan didn't lag behind, twirling his mom, her colleagues, and the neighbors. I stood aside observing and continuing to bustle about, bringing food, clearing dishes, making sure everyone was fed and watered. I liked the role of hostess more than the role of guest. "Sarah, come dance." Susan beckoned. "Why are you standing there like a statue?" "No time." I waved her off. "Still so much to do." "Oh, come on, it's a party." But I didn't go. Something inside told me it was better to stay on the sidelines. And it turned out I was right. Closer to 5:00 p.m., Linda approached the DJ and said something to him. He nodded and turned off the music. "My dears," the birthday girl addressed the guests loudly, "thank you all for your warm congratulations, but I have another reason for joy." Everyone fell silent, awaiting the continuation. "Today I received the best gift of my life." My mother-in-law announced solemnly, "My beloved son decided to give me a surprise." I tensed up. We hadn't planned any surprise. What was she talking about? "Ethan," Linda called. "Come here, son." My husband appeared from somewhere off to the side, a strange expression on his face. He looked both flustered and resolute. "Mom," he began, "all your life you've only thought of others. First you raised me, then you waited for grandchildren, forgetting about yourself." "Ethan, what are you saying?" My mother-in-law demurred, but it was clear from her eyes she was thrilled by the attention. "Therefore I decided," Ethan continued, "that today you will receive a gift you've long dreamed of." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. I immediately recognized the keychain, a little red heart that my mom had given me. They were the keys to my car. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the keys in my husband's hand, unable to believe my eyes. The red heart keychain, which Mom had given me along with the car, dangled on the chain, reflecting the sunlight. "Mom," Ethan said grandly, holding the keys up so everyone could see, "you've always dreamed of your own car. Remember how you complained about overcrowded buses, about how hard it was to get to the lake house with bags?" Linda pressed her hands to her chest, feigning extreme surprise, although her eyes showed she was in on it. "Ethan, what are you saying?" she whispered, but her voice sounded false. "So, today, on your birthday, I'm giving you a car," my husband announced loudly and handed the keys to his mother. The guests gasped, someone clapped. Linda's colleagues shrieked with delight. "Oh, what a thoughtful son, what a gift, Linda, you're so lucky." And I stood there rooted to the spot, unable to utter a word. My ears were ringing as if I dived into cold water. The keys to my car, gifted to me by my parents' Ethan, was ceremoniously handing over to his mother. "Wait," I finally managed to choke out. "This is the best gift of my life." Linda interrupted me, snatching the keys with trembling hands. Now she wasn't pretending to be surprised anymore. She was openly jubilant. "My dear son." She rushed to hug Ethan, clutching the keys to her chest like a sacred relic. "That's Sarah's car," I repeated louder, taking a step forward, but my voice was drowned out by the guests' enthusiastic exclamations. "Wow, he gave her a car. A rare son cares for his mother so much. Ethan, you're amazing." My husband stood next to his mother, accepting congratulations, looking like the hero of the day. He didn't look at me. "Ethan," I called sharply. He reluctantly turned towards me. "Can we talk alone?" "Later, Sarah. Can't you see Mom's overwhelmed?" "Now," I enunciated in a tone that made several guests turn around. Linda sensed the tension in the air and hurried to seize the initiative. "Oh, show me the car," she exclaimed. "Where is it I want to see my gift?" "Nah, in the garage," I answered grimly. "Let's all go see," one of the accountants suggested. "This is exciting." The crowd of guests moved towards the garage. Linda marched at the head, waving the keys like a victory banner. Ethan trailed beside her, avoiding my gaze. I remained on the patio, trying to gather my thoughts. My hands were shaking with anger and shock. How dare he? How could he even think of such a thing? "Sarah, what's going on?" Susan, who hadn't joined the crowd at the garage, came over. "Why do you look like that?" "Ethan gave Mom my car," I answered hoarsely. "The one my parents gave me." "What?" My friend couldn't believe it. How did he give it? He can't just take it and give it away. Apparently he can. Enthusiastic voices drifted from the garage. Evidently everyone liked the car. "Listen, where did he get the keys?" Susan frowned. I spun around towards the house, rushed into the bedroom, and grabbed my purse. I rummaged inside. The keys were gone. Ethan had stolen them while I was changing or busy with the refreshments. "Stole them," I said, returning to my friend. "Took them from my purse." "He's completely lost his mind," Susan fumed. "Are you just going to put up with this?" "Not a chance." The guests began to return from their inspection. Linda was beaming like a Christmas tree. "A beautiful car," she announced to the whole patio. "Brand new. Ethan, you've made me so happy." "Yes, a thoughtful son, neighbor," Teresa chimed in, but her voice was somewhat uncertain. Victor, Teresa's husband, glanced at me sympathetically. He probably understood something was very wrong. "Linda," I said loudly, approaching the birthday girl, "give back the keys. That's my car." Silence fell. Everyone stopped talking and stared at us. "What do you mean, your car?" My mother-in-law raised her eyebrows in surprise. "My son gave it to me in front of everyone." "My parents gave me that car for my birthday a year ago." "So what?" Linda shrugged. "You're married, so everything you own is shared. And Ethan decided to share with his mother. Is that so bad?" The guests stirred. Hushed voices were heard. "She kind of has a point. It's a family car, right? A mother-in-law is family too." I couldn't believe my ears. Did they all think it was normal to take a gift from a wife's parents and give it to the mother-in-law? Ethan? I turned to my husband. "Explain to everyone that the car is registered in my name, that it was a personal gift to me from my parents." My husband fidgeted, shaking his head. "Well, formally, yes, it's in your name. But we're a family. We share everything. So I can take your tools and give them to the neighbors, since we share everything." "That's different," Ethan mumbled. "How is it different?" Tools are for work. What do you think the car is for me, just for show? Carol, Linda's cousin, decided to intervene. Sarah, don't make a scene. Linda has struggled alone all her life. She deserves a gift from her son. At my expense, she deserves it. What are you stingy with your mother-in-law? One of the accountants piped up. You should defer to your elders. This isn't deferring, this is theft. I couldn't hold back. Linda gasped theatrically. Oh, how she speaks to me, Ethan. Do you hear her? Sarah, calm down, my husband said sternly. Don't ruin Mom's party. Am I ruining it? I am. Oh, enough already. Ethan waved his hand irritably. Mom got the car, and that's final. She deserved it. Deserved it for what? For raising me alone without help, gave her all. And now I should give her a gift from my own parents. You should show respect for your elders, Carol pronounced sententiously. And gratitude, the accountant added. After all, your mother-in-law raised your wonderful son for you. I looked at the guests' faces. Most of them were looking at me disapprovingly as if I were a spoiled brat who didn't want to share her toy. So you all think it's normal to steal a wife's keys and give her car to his mother-in-law? What are you talking about? Linda fumed. No one stole anything. Ethan just decided to make his mom happy. Without my consent. Why would he need your consent? My mother-in-law asked with genuine surprise. The husband is the head of the family. He decides. Several women nodded approvingly. She's right. The husband decides, the wife obeys. All this talk of equality is nonsense. I realized I was surrounded by people from another era. For them, a wife's obedience to her husband and mother-in-law was the norm. All right, I said, barely containing myself. Then explain this to me. If a husband can give away my things without asking, can I give his suit to a neighbor or sell his tools? That's completely different. Carol waved her hands. A man works, he needs his tools. And I don't need a car. Why would you need a car? You're young and healthy. Walk, take the bus. Linda is elderly now. It's hard for her. This was the height of cynicism. So the young should give everything to the old simply because they are older. Sarah, Victor. The neighbor approached me. Maybe you really shouldn't make a scene. Linda isn't a stranger after all. She's your mother-in-law. Even he, who a minute ago had looked at me with sympathy, was now advising me to give in. Victor, if Teresa gave your car to her mother without your knowledge, would you also not make a scene? He hesitated. Well, that's a different situation. How is it different? I'm a man, and women should be wiser, more yielding. I see. I realized there was no support to be found. Even those who saw the injustice advised me to yield for the sake of family peace. Linda sensed the crowd's mood was on her side and decided to finish off her opponent. Sarah, I understand you're upset about the car, but think about it. I've cared for my son for so many years, and now he can finally repay his mother. Are you really that heartless? Repay you at my expense. Whose else? You're his wife. You should share his burdens, which consist of stealing my things. Stop saying stealing, Ethan exploded. I didn't steal anything. I just took the keys and gave Mom the car, without my permission. Why do I need permission? We're husband and wife. That's precisely why you need permission. This is ridiculous. My husband waved his hand. Mom got her gift, that's it. Stop having a meltdown. Linda smiled triumphantly and waved the keys again. Ethan, show me how the car starts. It's been so long since I've driven, I've forgotten. Of course, Mom, let's go. They headed back to the garage. Curious guests trailed after them. I remained on the patio with a few women who were looking at me with disapproval. You're wrong to do this, Sarah. Carol shook her head. You're destroying your family over a car. Not over a car, but over principle. Principles are good, but family is more important. What kind of family is it if my husband doesn't respect me? Respect must be earned through obedience, wisdom. Obedience, of course. One of the accountants nodded. I've been married for 40 years. I've never once contradicted my husband. That's why our family is strong. And did he give away your things without asking, why ask? The husband knows best. These women lived in a world where a man could dispose of his wife as property and considered it normal. The sound of an engine starting came from the garage. Apparently, Linda was trying out her new gift. Sarah, Susan, who had been silent all this time, approached. "Where are the papers for the car at home in the safe? Maybe you should go get them, show everyone whose name the car is under." Good idea. I quickly ran into the house, opened the safe, and took out the folder with the documents. But when I returned to the patio, a new surprise awaited me. A man in his 50s in a formal suit was sitting at the table. Papers lay in front of him. "Ah, Sarah." Linda beamed, appearing with the keys in her hand. "Just in time. Meet Bill Johnson, an old friend of mine. He's a notary public." The man stood up and extended his hand. "A pleasure. Linda has told me so much about you." I mechanically shook his hand, but a chill ran down my spine. A notary at a family party. This was no coincidence. "Bill just dropped by to wish me a happy birthday," my mother-in-law continued, "and what a fortunate moment we can draw up the deed of gift for the car right away." "What deed of gift?" I was stunned. "Well, of course." Linda feigned surprise. "Ethan gave me the car. We need to transfer the documents." "I have everything ready," the notary said, tapping the papers. "A deed of gift from spouses Ethan and Sarah Miller in favor of Linda Miller. It'll take 10 minutes. So that was it. They had planned everything in advance, steal the keys, announce the gift in front of the guests, and then force me to sign the documents. And they had a notary on standby to make it all legal. "I'm not signing anything," I said firmly. "Why not?" My mother-in-law was astonished. "The car has already been gifted. Not by me, by Ethan." "Well, your family. Sign it quickly. Bill is a busy man." The notary cleared his throat. "You see, for a deed of gift, the consent of both spouses is required as the vehicle is considered marital property." "See?" Linda exclaimed triumphantly. "Sign it?" "No." "What do you mean, no?" "Just no, I won't sign." "But why?" shrieked my mother-in-law. "Ethan already told everyone he's giving me the car. Let him give his own car. He doesn't have a car, then let him buy one." Linda began to flush with anger. "Are you kidding me? My son wants to make his mother happy, and you're obstructing him. Let him make you happy with his own money." "What money? He doesn't have money for a car." "Then he shouldn't promise what he can't deliver." The guests grew restless. Some were whispering, some shaking their heads. The festive atmosphere had completely evaporated. "Sarah," Ethan said menacingly, "you're putting me in an awkward position. I've already promised Mom." "And you put me in a convenient position by stealing my keys." "Enough about the stealing. I'm her husband. I have the right." "The right to what? To steal, the right to dispose of family property." Bill Johnson coughed delicately. "Excuse me for interjecting, but the vehicle is formally considered joint marital property. Its transfer indeed requires the consent of both parties." "Hear that?" Linda jabbed a finger at me. "Even the notary says family property." "And the consent of both parties is needed," I reminded her. "Well, then I don't consent." "Why?" "Because it's unfair." "What's unfair? A son wants to make his mother happy, at my expense." "Whose else? You're his wife." The circle was complete. For Linda and her supporters, I was obligated to sacrifice everything for the whims of my husband and mother-in-law. "You know what?" I said, pulling the car documents from the folder. "Here's the title. Look whose name it's under." Bill Johnson took the documents and studied them. His face gradually changed. "Interesting," he muttered. "The vehicle is registered to a Gail Peterson." A dead silence fell. Gail Peterson was my mother. The car was registered in my mother's name. Linda snatched the documents from the notary's hands and stared at them as if they were Chinese hieroglyphs. "What is this?" she hissed. "Why, some Peterson." "That's my mother," I replied calmly. "My parents specifically registered the car in her name when they gave it to me." "Why?" "For this very reason." Ethan stood pale, gasping for air. Apparently, it had just dawned on him that he had ceremoniously gifted something he didn't own. But you drive it," he stammered, "under a power of attorney from my mother." "What power of attorney?" I pulled another document from the folder. This one, a general power of attorney for vehicle operation. Bill Johnson took the power of attorney, examined the seals and signatures. "The document is valid. Gail Peterson entrusts her daughter Sarah Miller with the operation of the vehicle, but she remains the owner." "So the car isn't yours?" Carol asked, dumbfounded. Formally, no. Factually, my parents gave it to me, but they registered it in their name. Why? Ethan didn't understand. I looked at my husband for a long moment. Apparently, my parents were wiser than I was. They foresaw what might happen. What could happen? What's happening right now? An attempt to take my gift away from me. Linda shook the documents. So they tricked us, say they were giving it to their daughter, but registered it in their own name. They didn't trick anyone. They just made sure the car stayed in our family. Which our family, Ethan is your husband. He's also your family. Apparently not entirely. My mother-in-law realized her plan had failed and decided to go on the offensive. All right, so the car is in your mother's name, but Ethan already promised everyone in front of all these people. What are we going to do now? How will he look? And how do I look, I asked, when my husband steals my keys and gives them to strangers? What strangers? I'm his mother. You're a stranger to me. I have my own mother. Linda turned crimson. How dare you speak to me like that? And how dare you try to dispose of someone else's property? Ethan, shrieked my mother-in-law. Do you hear how she's talking to me? But Ethan was silent, still reeling from the shock. I, however, was just warming up. 7 years of accumulated anger demanded release. You know, Linda, I said loudly so everyone could hear, it's time to clarify a few things. You think I owe you something. The car, respect, obedience. Of course you do. I'm your mother-in-law. And what does that give me? What do you mean I'm older, more experienced? I'm your husband's mother. Well, that's lovely, but what does that have to do with me? The guests exchanged glances. They hadn't expected such candor. I didn't ask you to give birth to Ethan, I continued. That was your decision. And raising him was also your responsibility, not a favor to me. Sarah, Ethan cut me off. What are you saying? I'm telling the truth. Your mother thinks everyone owes her for fulfilling her parental duty. Duty? Linda shrieked. I gave my entire self to my son. Your choice. No one forced you. Ungrateful. Grateful for what? For you meddling in our lives, criticizing my every step, telling me how to live. I want what's best. Best for whom? For yourself. Carol tried to intervene. Sarah, you're being too harsh. And you stay out of it, I snapped. This is my house, my family, my problems. But Linda should think before giving away other people's property. Bill Johnson delicately folded the documents. Perhaps I should be going. A deed of gift can't be processed if the owner isn't present. You're not going anywhere, I stopped him. First explain to everyone present whether Ethan had the right to give away someone else's car. The notary hesitated. Strictly speaking, no. One can only gift one's own property. So this whole charade was illegal from the start. In principle, yes. Thank you for your honesty. Ethan finally snapped out of his stupor. Sarah, enough. Okay, the car is in Mom's name, but we can work it out. We'll ask her to transfer it. To whom? To your mother. Well, to us first, and then you'll give it away or sell it without my knowledge. My husband faltered. I could tell from his face I'd hit the mark. Ethan, I said slowly, why did you even need my car? Oh, I wanted to give Mom a gift. Tell the truth. I am telling the truth. No, you're not. You had other plans for the car. Linda sensed danger. What are you talking about? What plans? I looked at my husband intently. He was growing paler by the second. Ethan, tell the guests about your debts. What debts? My mother-in-law didn't understand. Ask your son how much he's lost playing online poker in the last 6 months. Silence descended. Ethan stood like a man condemned. Ethan, his mother called uncertainly. What is she talking about? He plays online poker, I explained. Thought I didn't know. But when $10,000 disappeared from our account, I started asking questions. $10,000, Linda gasped. That was just last month. In total, he's lost around $50,000. The guests stirred. The sum was impressive. Ethan, is this true? His mother demanded. My husband nodded without looking up. And now debt collectors are after him, I continued, demanding he pay up, so he decided to sell my car. Sell it. How dumb? Linda didn't understand. Very simple. First gift it to you, then convince you to sell it and give the money to your son to pay off his debts. My mother-in-law looked at Ethan in horror. Is this true, son? He remained silent. Answer me. Well, in general terms, yes, my husband muttered. So you wanted to deceive both me and your wife. Not deceive, just solve the problem. At our expense, I exploded. You were going to sell my car to pay off your gambling debts. What was I supposed to do? The collectors are threatening me. Work, earn money, not sell other people's property. I can't earn that much on my salary. Then you shouldn't have gambled. Linda sank onto a chair. Ethan, how could you deceive your mother? Mom, I wanted what was best, a gift for you, and to solve my problem. At your daughter-in-law's expense. Even his mother understood the vileness of the situation. You know what? I announced loudly. The party's over. I'm asking everyone to leave my house. Your house? Linda perked up. This is a family home. No, this is my house, bought before the marriage with money from selling my parents' old apartment. But you live here as a married couple. The house should be shared. The house remained my property. We signed a prenup. This was a lie. There was no prenup. But I knew Linda wasn't savvy about legal intricacies. What prenup? Ethan asked, confused. The one you didn't read when you signed it. I bluffed. It clearly states property acquired before marriage remains separate property. My husband stared dumbfounded. He probably really didn't remember what he'd signed at City Hall. So I have no rights to the house? He asked, stunned. None. Just like you had no rights to the car. But we were husband and wife. Were, until today. The guests began to exchange nervous glances. The scandal was taking a serious turn. What do you mean, were? Ethan paled. It means tomorrow I'm filing for divorce. Over a car. Over you being a thief and a liar. Sarah? Sarah what? You stole my keys, deceived the guests, tried to sell someone else's property. That's called fraud. I wanted to solve the problem. At my expense without asking me. Well, I'm sorry. Too late for apologies. I can't trust you anymore. Linda tried to salvage the situation. Sarah, don't be hasty. We can all discuss this, work it out. There's nothing to discuss. Pack your things and get out. Get out, but it's a family celebration. The family is over. But the guests, the food, take it with you. Carol was indignant. How can you kick people out in the middle of a party? And how can you divide other people's property? I retorted. Thought you could easily fool a dumb broad. It didn't work. We weren't fooling anyone. No. Then who prepared the deed of gift in advance? Who dragged a notary to a party, all just a coincidence? Bill Johnson hastily gathered his papers. I really should be going. Go. And don't meddle in other people's family affairs anymore. The notary beat a hasty retreat. Sarah, my husband tried, let's talk calmly. Talk about what? About how you've been lying to me for 6 months, gambling away our money, planning to sell my car. I'll change. I know how you change. You make promises and then start all over again. But I confessed I told you everything myself. No, I figured everything out myself. You lied to the very end. Ethan looked around at the guests seeking support, but they averted their eyes. Even his mother looked at her son with disappointment. Mom, he turned to Linda. Say something. What is there to say? His mother replied tiredly. You deceived us all, me and your wife. But I wanted to help you with someone else's car. Well, it just happened that way. I exploded. You planned this scam for a month. Figured out how best to re-register the car, arrange things with the notary. This wasn't an accident. I really wanted to give Mom a gift after selling it. Then you should have bought another one. With what money you are $50,000 in debt. The guests began to quietly gather their things. The atmosphere was at its breaking point. We'll be going, Teresa said. Thanks for the food. We'll go too, the Berezines chimed in. People started to leave. No one wanted to witness a family breakdown. Wait, Linda cried. Where are you going? The party isn't over. What party? One of the accountants shrugged. A family is falling apart here. Well, wait, maybe they'll reconcile. We won't reconcile, I stated firmly. That's it. For 7 years I tolerated your antics. Not anymore. What antics? My mother-in-law fumed. Constant interference in our lives, criticism, attempts to control everything. I was caring for my son's family. You were destroying our family with your care. That's not true. It is true. Ethan still can't make a decision without your approval. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong is that he's married to me, Linda, not to you, Linda gasped. How dare you? I dare. In my house, I can say whatever I want. Ethan, do you hear how she's talking to your mother? But Ethan was silent. Apparently, he finally understood what he had done. You know what? I said. Let's do this, Linda. You take your son and leave. I'll stay in my house and live how I want. But this is divorce. Exactly. Over a car. Not over a car. Over lies and betrayal. But it's a shame about the family. What family? Where the husband deceives the wife and the mother-in-law covers up his deceit. My mother-in-law sniffled. I wasn't covering for him. I didn't know about the debts. But you knew about the plan with the car. Otherwise, where did the notary come from? Bill Johnson really just wanted to congratulate you with prepared deed of gift documents. Linda fell silent. That's it, I announced. Conversation over. I ask everyone to leave my house. What about my things? Ethan asked. You can get them tomorrow when I'm not here. But where will I live? With your mommy, in her tiny apartment. It'll be perfect. You can live together just like you dreamed. My mother-in-law and husband exchanged glances. The idea of living together clearly didn't thrill them. Sarah. Ethan tried one last time. Maybe we can talk. I understand I was wrong. Wrong. You were a criminal. You wanted to steal and sell someone else's property. But we're family. The family is over. I turned and walked into the house. Behind me, I heard the bewildered voices of the guests, Linda's sobs, Ethan's quiet apologies. Half an hour later, the yard was clear. All that remained were dirty dishes, scattered napkins, and the bitter taste of disappointment. I sat on the patio and looked at the empty yard. 7 years of married life had ended in a single day. And you know what? I wasn't sorry. Not at all. The phone rang. Mom. Honey, how are you? How did the party go? Great, Mom, just great. And your mother-in-law happy with her gifts? Very happy. Especially with the one she didn't get. I don't understand. I'll tell you later, Mom. By the way, did you really register the car in your name so Ethan couldn't take it? A pause. How did you know? It came up today. Honey, Dad and I just wanted to protect you. And you were right. Thank you. Did something happen? It did. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Because of the car. Because of a lot of things. But the car was the last straw. I understand. We support you. I know, Mom. Thanks. I hung up and looked at the empty yard again. Tomorrow, a new life would begin. Without lies, without betrayal, without constant control from my mother-in-law. I felt good. For the first time in 7 years, truly good. A week after the disastrous birthday party, I filed for divorce. I went to court alone. Ethan didn't show up. He probably hoped I'd change my mind. The plaintiff requests dissolution of the marriage due to irreconcilable differences, the judge read from my petition. No minor children. The respondent has not contested. The procedure took half an hour, a stamp in the file. The marriage was considered dissolved from the moment the court issued its decision. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt a strange relief, as if heavy shackles I'd worn for 7 years had been removed. But my joy was premature. The next day, a strange man called me. Sarah Miller, my name is William S. Kershaw. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Ethan Miller. I'm listening. My client intends to file a suit for the division of marital assets. What assets? The vehicle and the residential home. I chuckled. Good luck to him. Ms. Miller, I advise you to take this situation seriously. By law, all property acquired during marriage is subject to equal division. Even if it was acquired before marriage. The house was acquired before marriage, yes. And the car, that was too, as a birthday gift from my parents before the marriage registration. The lawyer paused. Can you document this? Of course. Then we'll be in touch. He hung up. I realized Ethan had decided to fight to the end. Linda had probably egged him on. That evening, the doorbell rang. Ethan stood on the doorstep with a large duffel bag. "Hi," he said uncertainly. "Came for my things." "I don't mind." He walked into the house looking around like a stranger. "Listen, Sarah, maybe we can talk like civilized people." "About what?" "Well, about life, about the future." "Your future doesn't interest me." "But we lived together for 7 years." "You lied for 7 years. That's not living together." Ethan started packing his things from the closet suits, shirts, underwear, neatly folding everything into the bag. "Why did you hire a lawyer?" I asked. "Mom advised it. Says I'm entitled to half the house." "Your mom says a lot of things, not always correctly. But the house was bought during the marriage, before the marriage, and the car was also pre-marriage, and it wasn't gifted to me." "What do you mean, not to you?" I showed him the car title. Owner Gail Peterson, my mother. Ethan studied the document carefully. "But you drive it, on a power of attorney." "Why so complicated?" "So people like you couldn't take it away." My husband winced. "So your parents didn't trust me from the start." Turns out they were right not to. "But it's not my fault I lost money. It's a sickness." "A sickness is when you have a fever. This is called irresponsibility." "I'm getting help. I'm seeing a therapist." "Too late." Ethan finished packing and sat on the bed. "Sarah, I know I was wrong, but can't you give me a second chance?" "No." "Why?" "Because trust can't be rebuilt. You might stop gambling, but I'll never be sure you won't start again." "But other people give second chances. Other people are other people. I won't." He was silent for a moment, then asked, "So what now? I'll be left with nothing." "With what you earned yourself." "I have debts." "Your debts, your problems. But how will I pay them back?" "Work. I worked while you gambled." "You didn't know." "I knew. I just hoped you'd stop on your own." Ethan looked at me surprised. "You knew and said nothing." "I did speak up. You brushed it off, made excuses. When I asked where the money from the account went, when I wondered why you were on your phone at night, when I suggested we plan a budget together." He fell silent, probably recalling my attempts to control the family finances. "Okay," he sighed. "I'll live with Mom." "Whatever you arrange with her, she's not thrilled about it." "And I wasn't thrilled when you were spending our money on gambling." Ethan stood up, picked up his bag. "Well, I'm off. Bye." At the door, he turned. "If anything, you know where to find me." "I won't be looking." He left. I closed the door and leaned against it. Strangely, I wasn't sad, only calm. A month later, a court summons arrived. Ethan had indeed filed a suit for division of property despite his lawyer warning him it was a long shot. On the day of the hearing, I came with a folder of documents and my lawyer a contact from Susan. Ethan sat at the respondent's table with Kershaw. He looked terrible, thin, haggard, dark circles under his eyes. "The court will hear the case of Miller Ethan A. versus Peterson Sarah N. regarding the division of marital property," the judge announced. Ethan's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client requests an equal division of the vehicle and residential home belonging to the respondent. Grounds. This property was acquired during the marriage and is considered marital property." The judge looked at me. "Respondent, your objections?" "I object. The vehicle was acquired before the marriage and belongs not to me but to my mother. The house was also acquired before the marriage." "Present your documents." I handed the judge the car title and the deed of sale for the house. The judge carefully examined the papers. "The vehicle is registered to Gail Peterson. The house was acquired by the respondent 6 months before the marriage registration. Plaintiff, your comments." Kershaw exchanged a look with Ethan. "Your Honor, the vehicle was effectively used by the respondent, therefore..." "Therefore what?" "It can be considered family property. On what grounds the owner of the vehicle is a third party?" "But the respondent used it under a power of attorney from the owner. That doesn't make her the owner of the vehicle." Ethan's lawyer started to get nervous. "And the house is registered in the respondent's name. The house was acquired before the marriage, therefore it is the respondent's premarital property." "But improvements were made during the marriage." "What improvements?" Kershaw fumbled through his papers. Renovations landscaping. Do you have documents for these expenses? No, and without documents, the court cannot consider these circumstances. Ethan asked to speak. Your Honor, I invested money in the house, bought building materials, paid for labor. Present your payment documents. I don't have receipts. I paid in cash. Then your statements are unsubstantiated. My lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I request that the plaintiff's income statement for the period of the marriage be admitted into evidence. The judge took the statement. The plaintiff's average monthly income was $2,500. The value of the house is $400,000. Even assuming the plaintiff saved his entire salary, he could not have financed significant improvements. Kershaw tried one last argument, but the plaintiff is entitled to compensation for improvements to the dwelling. What improvements specifically? Well, painting, minor repairs. The cost of painting and minor repairs does not exceed a few $1,000s. Given the plaintiff's income, this amounts to at most 2 months' salary. The judge set aside the documents. The court concludes that the plaintiff has no rights to the disputed property. The vehicle belongs to a third party. The house is the respondent's premarital property. Claim denied. Ethan sat pale. Apparently, it had only just sunk in that he was left with nothing. After the hearing, I walked out of the courtroom with a sense of complete satisfaction. Justice had prevailed. Sarah, Ethan called out to me. Wait. I turned. My ex-husband looked distraught. What now? He asked. You'll live with your mom and pay off your debts. What if I can't pay them back? Not my problem. But the collectors are threatening. Go to the police. Sarah, maybe you could help a little, lend me some money. I looked at him for a long moment. Ethan, you wanted to steal my car. Now you're asking me for a loan. Do you have any conscience? I'll change, I swear. Your honest word is worthless. But where am I supposed to go? I don't know, and I don't want to know. I turned and walked towards the exit. I never saw him again. 6 months later, Susan told me the latest news about my former family. Ethan got a job as a loader in a warehouse. The pay was small, most of it taken by debt collectors. He lived with his mother in her one-bedroom apartment, constantly arguing. Linda blamed her son for the divorce, and he blamed her for talking him into suing. They say he's still gambling, my friend reported, at night secretly from his mother. I wouldn't be surprised. And Linda tells everyone how ungrateful you are that you left your husband for money. Let her talk. Doesn't it bother you? No, I know the truth. And how are you doing? Excellent. And it was true. Things were indeed going excellently for me. I expanded my event planning business, hired 2 assistants, and moved into a new office. Orders increased. Apparently, word of my quality work had spread among clients. I bought myself a new car, a little red VW Golf, registered in my name naturally. I met a good man, David, an architect, intelligent, decent, independent. No more mama's boys. Sometimes David and I would drive past the drab apartment block where Ethan lived with his mother in the old part of town. The windows on the first floor were barred, the courtyard dirty. Hardly any cars in the lot. Poor things, David would say sympathetically. They got what they deserved. I'd reply, feeling not a shred of pity. One winter evening, returning from work, I saw a familiar figure at the bus stop. Linda was standing in line with heavy bags aged hunched over her gray hair, badly dyed. Our eyes met. My ex-mother-in-law turned away, pretending not to recognize me. I drove past without stopping. At home, I told my mom about the encounter. Don't you feel sorry for her? She asked. No. And not for Ethan either. No. You haven't become cruel. I thought for a moment. No, Mom, I've become just. There's a difference. What's the difference? Cruelty is when you inflict undeserved harm. Justice is when everyone gets what they deserve. I see. They wanted to deceive me, steal my property, use me for their own ends. And what did they get? Ethan is a debtor without a home. Linda has a problem son on her hands. That's justice. And you? I got freedom. Freedom from lies, from manipulation, from constant control. That's also justice. Mom smiled. Well done. Dad and I are proud of you. For what? for not letting yourself be wronged. A year later, I married David. The wedding was small, just our closest family and friends. The groom's and bride's parents, a few friends. No lavish celebrations, no hours-long feasts. Just a beautiful ceremony and a cozy family dinner. "Are you inviting your ex-husband?" the hairdresser quipped while doing my hair. "Why? Well, to show him how happy you've become. I don't need to show anyone anything. I'm happy for myself, not for show." And it was true. I was happy, truly, deeply, calmly happy. David turned out to be exactly the man I had dreamed of. Independent, honest, respectful of my boundaries and opinions. His mother lived in another state and didn't meddle in our lives. When she visited, she was tactful and never overstayed her welcome. "What do you think?" I asked David one evening. "If I had given in back then, signed that deed of gift for the car, what would have changed?" "Nothing good," he replied. "Ethan would have realized he could deceive you with impunity. Your mother-in-law would have realized she could boss you around. It would have been the end." "The end of what?" "The end of you as a person. You would have turned into an obedient puppet. And this way you remained yourself strong, independent, principled. Not cruel, just. That's a big difference." I liked that David understood the difference between cruelty and justice. I could talk to him about anything without fearing judgment. Another 6 months passed. One morning, a strange woman called me. "Hello, is this Sarah Miller?" "Yes." "My name is Olga. I'm Linda Miller's neighbor. She had a stroke. She's in the hospital." "I'm sorry to hear that." "She asked me to tell you that she regrets what happened and asks for your forgiveness." I paused. "Tell her I hurt her. And that's all. That's all. You won't come visit, and no. But goodbye." I hung up and thought, Linda asking for forgiveness. Sincerely or out of fear of death, most likely out of fear. People like that don't change. That evening, I told David about the call. "Are you going to visit?" he asked. "No." "Why?" "Because it would be hypocritical. I don't forgive her, and I'm not going to pretend I do. And if she truly repents, then let her repent. That's her problem." "Not cruel. Honest." David nodded. "I understand." A week later, Olga called again. "Linda Miller passed away." "I see." "Ethan asks if you could help with the funeral expenses." "He has no money." "No." "But this is goodbye." I hung up again. Even after his mother's death, Ethan was trying to leech off me. I didn't go to the funeral, not out of cruelty, but because I had no desire whatsoever to pretend to be grieving. There were few people at the cemetery, Ethan, a few neighbors, a couple of distant relatives, a modest send-off for a modest life. A month later, I heard rumors that Ethan had sold his mother's apartment and moved to another city. Apparently, he decided to start life anew. Where he went, with whom, what he was doing, I wasn't interested. That chapter of my life was closed forever. 5 years had passed since that memorable birthday party. I was sitting on the patio of my house, the very one Ethan had tried to sue me for. Nearby, my 2-year-old son Arthur was playing in his sandbox. David was building a new gazebo. Life was good, calm, measured. "Mommy, tell me about the car," Arthur asked, running up to me. "Which car?" "The one Grandpa and Grandma gave you." I smiled. My son loved stories about the red car his grandparents had given me. "That was a long time ago," I began. "Mommy was young and foolish. She thought if you got married, everything would be fine on its own. And what happened? What happened was that some people turned out to be not very nice. They wanted to take Mommy's car." "Why?" "Because they were greedy." "And did you let them?" "No." "Why?" "Because you have to protect what's yours." "And then what?" "And then Mommy sent those people away and started living happily with Daddy." "With Daddy?" Arthur nodded and ran off to play again, and I sat on the patio thinking about how drastically life can change because of one decision. If 5 years ago I had given in, signed that deed of gift, what would have happened? Ethan would have realized he could do whatever he wanted with me. Linda would have felt complete power over me, and I would have turned into a spineless doormat. It's good that I didn't waver. It's good that I said no and saw it through to the end. Sometimes standing up for your principles is hard. Sometimes it seems easier to give in, to stay silent, to agree. But in the long run, it always ends badly. People who can't say no sooner or later lose themselves. They turn into convenient puppets for those around them. But those who know how to protect their boundaries remain human. Alive, real, free people. Like me. David walked over, wiping sawdust from his hands. What are you thinking about? About the past? Any regrets? No, I did everything right. Wasn't it harsh, though? It was just... He kissed the top of my head. It's good that you're so principled. Why is it good? Because I feel safe with you. I know you won't betray me, won't deceive me, won't set me up. And you, I won't betray you either. We have an honest family. An honest family. I like that definition. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink. Arthur was building sandcastles, humming a children's song. David was finishing the gazebo. Everything was right, everything was good. And somewhere in another city, my ex-husband was possibly still playing poker, thinking life had been unfair to him. Maybe he was, but it no longer concerned me. Not at all.